Hey Kimberbellas, Cristin Som here. It's time to start a group project of the Welcome Autumn Bench Pillow. This is the official September bench pillow and it's almost September, so it's time to get started playing. So for those still working on love notes, don't worry, or if you haven't gotten your CD yet or found some autumn fabrics, we have time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a lot about rehooping and quilting the main fabric, and then we'll take a break to finish love notes. So you have time, don't worry. When you finish, what I'll do is I'll post a challenge for each day. And then when you finish that part of the challenge, you post pictures in the comments and we'll go from there, and that'll give me an idea of when we should move on. But like I said, there will be a break between the starting and finishing up love notes, so don't worry. A couple things to note. It calls for burlap in the instructions, and some people have been asking where to find burlap. I found some at Walmart online. I think fabric.com has some. But I've chosen not to use burlap, and I talked about that in one of my posts, saying that it's really messy and it frays so intensely that it like pulls away the stitches. And you can definitely use that. It looks really cute on the pillow. But considering that I'm going to have my pillow in storage for 11 months of the year, I've decided I'm not going to use burlap. And I found some other fabric. I found several choices that look like burlap, but they're not. So use whatever works for you. You can use burlap or fabric or vinyl or felt, really faux leather, whatever works for you. And burlap is fine too. So anyway, so the first step is going to be the main fabric, quilting the main fabric, and we'll talk a lot about that and have videos on how to do that because we're going to do a lot of rehooping. And Kimberbell made us a very special quilting design just for this pillow for our group project, because I sent them a message saying we're going to work on this together and a lot of us are going to enjoy this, and if you happen to have time, maybe you could make us a quilting design, and they jumped on it. They were so great. So I'm going to send you a link of where to get the quilting design, and I'm going to show you how. So we're going to use the 8x10, and then we're going to start from the middle, and as we go further out, we'll probably end up using a 4x10 or a 2x10, and you'll see that it'll all match up and we'll get there. So anyway, let's get started and have fun. It's more fun doing stuff like this together. So this will be a fun group project. Okay, let's start by talking about hoop size. If you are going to use a 9x14 hoop, then it would be a good idea for you to delete the 1 through 4 steps. That is the batting placement stitch, batting tack down, main fabric placement, and main fabric basting stitch. And the reason is only because you could very easily forget that you have those, and when you hit green, it'll start stitching those. Rather, you could easily bypass them, but you're going to have to remember for each step. So whatever works for you, that's on the largest hoop. I'm going to use the 8x12 hoop only because I think that that will help some people, the ones that have a smaller hoop, because there is an issue with this one. If you use your 8x12 hoop, it's not really 8x12, which is a huge bummer. It's like 7.8 or something, even less than that, I think. So you have to adjust your design. So as we talked about in one of the other, or a couple of the other videos, if you want to use an 8x12 hoop with an 8x10 design or whatever it is, you would have to take out the basting stitch for the main fabric and the tack down stitch for the main fabric, because that makes it go to 8.5 by 12.5. And so it will not fit in this hoop. So you would have to take those out anyway. Well, the other thing is that once you take those out, you think you're all ready to go, but actually the design is a little bit too large because of the hoop not really being 8x12. So you also have to shrink it a bit. You can do that on the buttons on your machine very easily, or since you're already in an embroidery software to take those steps out, you could do it on that. I did it both ways just out of curiosity, and what I found is that when you do it on embroidery software, you can put it to 99%. I'll show you pictures on that, and it brings it down just a little bit. Whereas if you bring it down on your machine, it brings it down a little bit smaller, and we really want it to be close to 8x10, so we don't want it to go too much smaller if we can avoid it. So that's on the 8x12. If you're doing the 6x10, if you have a 6x10 hoop, you're all set. Again, you would need to take out the basting stitch and the placement and basting stitch of the main fabric so that it'll actually fit in a 6x10 hoop, but that's all you have to do. Other than that, it fits in your hoop fine. So we're going to go ahead and start from the middle and work our way out. So it really doesn't matter if you use 9x14, 8x12, or 6x10 at this point. So do what works for you and dependent on your largest hoop size. And let's get started. Okay, as I mentioned, I'm going to use my 8x12 hoop, and I shrunk my design down just by 1%. So I'm at 9.78 by 7.78. And it doesn't matter because your main fabric, you want your design to be 9.5 by, 38.5 is our cut size, if I recall. So it doesn't matter if you shrink it down a tiny bit. So on that, let's talk about fabric. So generally when I do this, I just cut my batting to the size of my main fabric, and then when I'm done with the quilting, I cut close to the stitch line. But this one is a little bit different. The design actually goes off into our 1/4 inch seam allowance by just a bit. And that's perfectly fine. But so because of that, I went ahead and I cut my batting to exactly the size of our final cut size of fabric. And so this part is a little bit new to me. So what I did is I taped my batting down to my main fabric just to keep it aligned because it could easily move. If you have that spray stuff, yellow can, blue top, I don't use it, and so I don't have any, but if you have that, I think it'd probably be a good idea to use it on this. Like I said, I don't have it, and so I went ahead and taped mine down with Kimberbell tape, and I'll show you more pictures on that. And on the ends, I pinned it. So I mean, I'm pretty well held in place here. And the other thing I did is I pinned it to where my batting ends. so that gives me my seam allowance, and it also shows me where to stop, because when we get to the end, we're going to keep going further, and this will remind us not to go to the very end. So you basically just want to go to about where your batting stops. So we'll talk more about that later, but like I said, if you have that spray stuff, go ahead and use that to attach your batting to your main fabric. I've never done that, but it seems like it would be a good idea in this instance, because this is my first time of using batting that is not the same size as my fabric. So new stuff here. Let's get going. As usual, I am using tearaway in my hoop. You can use mesh, stabilizer, cutaway, whatever works for you. I like to use tearaway. It works fine for me and it's less expensive. So you're going to go ahead and start by putting, with one hand, should be interesting, putting your main fabric under your needle. That was fun. I got it stuck. All right. So remember the cross lines that we did in the photos? I haven't talked about that, but you want to iron your main fabric horizontally and vertically to be able to know where your center is. And we're going to start from the center. You could start from one side, but this will help keep everything evened out. So for now, just go ahead and place your main fabric right at the center, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Hold on. Okay, we're going to use the buttons on our machine to be able to move the foot around to see where it's going to stitch. Switch hands here, sorry. All right, so when I press the up button, I'm checking that I'm on that vertical line, all the way up, all the way down. And that's just to be able to get our fabric straight. All right, and then to the right. So see, we want to run along that horizontal line. Can you see this here? Okay, and then all the way to the left. And again, that's just to check to make sure our fabric is straight. Once that we have it straight, both horizontally and vertically, we want to pin it. I like to also pin the sides, because once it hits into this, it's going to move it around. So that helps me for placement. All right, so once you've got it right in the center, go ahead and pin it. All right, once you have it all pinned in place, check again by using the buttons on your machine to move the foot around to check to make sure everything is straight, both horizontally and vertically. You just want your fabric straight. That'll keep everything straight throughout the process. All right, and one little tip on how to pin. I move to the farthest point and then I pin this part because it's hanging off, and I put my hand behind it to hold it in place so you don't stick your finger through the fabric, or I'm sorry, through the stabilizer. But you want to be able to pin this really well, hold it all in place, and then I move to the other side and I get up and I walk around over there to do the pins back there. It makes it easier. If you were to take this off and bring it into your lap to do your pinning, you're going to move your fabric. So I get it, at least both of these edges all pinned, and then I'll take it on the last bit to my lap and finish it off. So that's my little tip on how I pin, and I don't poke my finger through the stabilizer because I hold it in place and kind of guide the pin. All right, so we are all set. We're all hooped, we're all resized, and we're ready. So remember, I talked to you about the fact that our batting ends here and our stitch line is going to go a little bit over, but it won't be in our seams because our batting has ended right where we need it to. So it won't be a problem at all. I have not done it this way before, but it looks like it's going to work fine. So choose your thread, whatever works for you. I've chosen a light brown so that it'll show up well for you for this tutorial. And I'm using the Kimberbell linen in a cream fabric for my main fabric. So, all right, it's time to play. Let's go. Seriously, could that be any prettier? Oh my goodness, I love it. All right, so for our second hooping, we're going to do that same thing. We're going to put our fabric under our foot and try and center it. So this one we're going to do a little bit differently because we're going to try and line it up with this edge of the stitching. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Let me just get my fabric straight. All right, so we are going to use these buttons again, and this time instead of working from the center, we're going to work from the very left edge. I'll show you why. So here we're going to move our foot over to the left, and that, of course that messes up our fabric, but I'm going to just show you. Change hands. All right, so see this right edge of the center fabric, the center quilting? We're going to try and line up our design to go right from the edge there. So once we know that we've got it toward the edge of that, the farthest part of the right side of this design, then we're going to check and make sure and get it all straight. But for now, our point is going to be to try and get it close to that stitching. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a continuous line design, so that means it doesn't have to line up exactly. It's not going to connect, so it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to not have it overlap if at all possible, and to also not have a big old gap. Like if you started over here, then all of this is not going to have any stitching on it. So we're just going to try and line it up with the farthest point on this. One other thing, so like I said, on the right edge of our center that we just stitched, but that will be the left end of our next design. So like I had said, we move our foot all the way over to the left, and you can see it's going to be here, and that's where we want to try and line up or be close to this stitching. So right end of our center design, left of the next design that we're going to do. On our center hooping, we had that nice vertical line to help us line everything up. We don't have that on any of the rest of our hoopings. We only have the horizontal line. So make sure to use that very carefully and make sure that your foot is going across that center line so that you know that your fabric is straight. Imagine if you have your fabric turned this way a little bit, your whole design will be very wonky. The design won't, I'm sorry, the fabric will be. So it won't be a straight design on your bench pillow. So just use that crease. And like I said, if you would rather, you can use that disappearing ink instead of iron. It's hard to see it on this tutorial, but it's very easy to see in person. So just center it all up with that horizontal line. And once you've got it straight, pin, pin, pin. All right, make sure that it's all straight and pin it, pin it, pin it. You could probably use that basting spray stuff if you prefer, but you got to figure out what works best for you. I like to pin. I find that that holds it up all really well, and it shows my placement. And so then we're going to go ahead and stitch, and we're going to start from our center, but as I mentioned, we're lining it up from the left edge here to the right edge of our center design. So this should all make sense. You can pin the edges again, like I had mentioned, because when it hits into the side, it can move your fabric, but once you've got it pinned, you're all set. And then we'll talk about how to do this last bit. So we have the center hooping done and the one to the right. This part is new to me. So now, normally when we have done the bench pillows in the past, we have to get the math just right and resize our designs and deal with a whole lot of hassle and shopping and trying to find the right design. And Kimberbell has just made it so easy for us. So like I said, you can use 8x10, 6x10, and then when you get to the end part here, you're going to measure it and figure out what size you need, and it will all match up with the Kimberbell designs. We are just so lucky. So for mine, I measured it and it came out to 6.5 inches. So again, I'm gonna hoop it and get it as close to that line or to the left side of the stitching. And it's actually the right side of this one, but we're gonna do it from the left. It's so confusing and hard to explain, but anyway, so let's go ahead and start. When you, by the way, you need to measure yours, because it could be 2 inches, it could be 4, 6, 8, whatever. You need to measure yours and see what size it works. Don't forget that I chose to use my smaller hoop to help those that have a smaller hoop. If you did this with your 9x14, then you didn't have to shrink it down, so you might have a little bit more space over here. You might be able to use another 8x10 or whatever. You have to figure out what size yours ends up being. It also will depend on how close you got your hoopings. So see, mine are pretty close. If you have a little bit bigger space or less space, that will change your end product over on the side here. So just measure it, and then we've got so many options. I'm so happy about that. Sorry, I'm sure you can hear me giggling about this, but anyway, if you've spent the hours and hours and hours that I have spent trying to find designs for us and what's gonna work, this just makes our lives so much easier. Okay, so now we are going to do the same thing. We're gonna put this in our hoop under our foot and get it all lined up just right. Okay, just as before, you're going to load your design, and then you're going to use this little arrow here or crosshair to get it over to the very left hand side of the design. And then we're going to line it up with the right edge of our stitching. So here's a good, for instance, so once you put this under your foot, so then you're going to use the buttons to move your foot and to see where it's going to stitch. So I want to show you something. So say I've got it just right over here, and then I hit this arrow, and you can see now it's above the line instead of centered on the line. And so I would just move my fabric up a little bit, because that would mean that it's straight down on the bottom, but it's not up, it's not in the right spot all the way around. So just use that center line here that we made with the crease of our iron and make it all straight. Make sure it's exactly where you want it to be, and then pin it, and don't forget to line it up against the right edge stitching. So let me get that set up and then we'll talk some more. Okay, after you have pinned and checked and made sure that it's going to be all straight, we're going to go ahead and start. And this is our last hooping for this side, depending on your size of hoop and how many hoopings you're doing, but we still have the whole other side to do. But let's go ahead and get this started. Okay, now we're going to work on the other side of our fabric. Usually I don't turn it around and you keep it all straight, but for this design it doesn't matter at all, and it's easier to have the excess running off of the left side, so I did turn my fabric. So once you have it where it's going through that center line, it's all lined up just right, as always from before, we're going to pin the heck out of it, and I also pin the edges for when it's close to the side here, it won't move it, and we're all ready. And this is now our fourth hooping. Depending on your hoop size and how close you get the hoopings together, my guess is everybody will probably do 6 hoopings, because even if you did 6x10 on all of them, I think either way it's going to work out to be 6 hoopings, but you'll need to just let me know. Either way, we've got all these size options from Kimberbell, so it just makes it so easy that once we get to that end part, we just measure what we have left and use the size that works best for that. All right, so here we go. And by the way, I'm using my 8x10 hoop for this one again. So the center was 8x10. 8 by 10 again, and then 6 by 10 on the edge, and then 8 by 10, and then I'll do a 6 by 10 probably. I have to measure it to be sure, but that's what's working for me. So braiding. I was wrong, it's 5 hoopings. 1 in the center, 2 on each side, for a total of 5. That's with 2, actually 3 8 by 10s and 2 6 by 10s. So depending on which hoop size that you use. So again, use the buttons to make sure everything is all lined up. And we're ready for our last hooping. I'm really excited for you guys to get started on your Welcome Autumn bench pillow with this new pretty stippling design. Oh my gosh, so fun. I think this is going to be my new favorite. Okay, everyone that's working on the Welcome Autumn Bench Pillow, we're going to start our second appliques today. So I want to point out a couple of things. Notice that the welcome is sideways, and so we want to make sure that the orientation of our fabric is right. So the front of your hoop will have the long part of your main fabric, and we're going to do the orientation going this way. So you want to center your needle over that number 2 spot that you did. And what I did to make sure my fabric is straight, it's really important. So imagine, sorry, I'm going to switch hands here. Imagine if your fabric is wonky a little bit, then your welcome will go up or down. It won't be totally straight. So here's what I did to make sure that my fabric was straight. Remember these buttons that we've used before? If you push the one to the left, it's going to show you the bottom edge of your applique design, and that happens to actually line up with our center line here. So it was really easy to use these buttons up and down to make sure that our that our foot runs along our center crease. So all I did is move my foot along this line just to make sure that my fabric is straight. That's the only purpose of this. You can use other ways. They have those clear things that you can put inside your hoop that shows a grid line. For some reason, I can't figure those things out. They don't work for me. So anyway, this just happened to work really well, that this center line worked out to be the bottom part, and so it was easy to make sure that my fabric was straight. So again, make sure your fabric's straight and make sure that the orientation is right. So the long part of your main fabric is going to lay off of the front end of your machine. The applique that we did yesterday is back there, and our welcome sign is facing this direction. So we're all good. So do your number 2 applique. To do our fourth hooping of the Welcome Autumn Bench Pillow, we have this nice line here that makes it easy for us to make sure that our fabric is all straight. And then you use that center mark that it makes and line it up with the mark that we made for our number 4. So just like this, have it be really right at your right edge and lined up with that mark. And then it's going to do a basting stitch. So I'm just going to hold my fabric down a little bit while it tacks it all in place. Makes it nice and easy for us to do our owl. I'm really excited to work on the owl next. Hi Kimberbellas. If you didn't get a chance to join in that Zoom class that I did, that was pretty fun. It went so fast, much faster than I expected. Anyway, I talked about how to do the leaf borders on your Welcome Autumn Bench Pillow. And there's several different ways of doing it. I chose to do quilting over the top. And if you look at the back, it's on the entire block, but it stands out most on the inside of the leaf because I chose to use a thread color that matches the outer part. So that's all completely optional. You can sew all of your blocks together and then quilt. You cannot quilt at all. It's a pillow. It does not every bit has to be quilted. But if you choose to do it this way, I will add some information in a tutorial. You can also do 4 of them all together if you like to use some embroidery software to help you out with that. Anyway, I'll give some information. Let's get started. I'm going to try and recreate what we talked about on the Zoom test meeting today. It was just real quick on how to quilt your leaf blocks and how to use Sew What Pro. So I'm just going to turn my screen here so that you can see what I'm going to do. Okay. So I went into Sew What Pro. I've got this little link down here. I see me too. Hopefully you're seeing the screen. Anyway, go to File, Open, and open up your quilting. You're going to want the 4x4 quilting, and then we need to make it a little bit smaller. I've already done this a few times, so I've got it saved, but let me see here. All right, so this is the 4x4 quilting, and as you can see, move this, it's actually 4.5 by 4.5, and we need it no larger than 4x4 because when we finish these blocks, we're going to cut it down to 4x4. And so to not get batting in our seams, we have to make this smaller because this is a 4.5-inch block with the 4-inch part being so that you don't have batting in your seams, but we're going to cut it to 4, so that means that we need it even smaller. So you can tell this is the number one thread is our batting placement, and then batting tack down, and you can see the size. This is 4x4, and we need it smaller than that. And then the fabric placement and the fabric, I'm trying to rush into this while my husband's out taking the dogs for a walk, so I'm not I'm rushing too much, but anyway, fabric placement and fabric tack down, and then our quilting. So we want the whole thing to be smaller, like 3.5 inches would be better for the main part. So if you go up here to resize, see this button here, it's got a resize. And then you can just test around, like start at 95% or whatever, but I've already done it, so I know that it's 88%. So I just type in 88%, and you can see that it's the same both width and height. So you click OK. And then we have it all shrunk down. So you can see that the overall thing is now 3.97 both ways. And our quilting is just under 3.5. So this is a really good size for a 4x4 block. So when you save it, make sure to do a save as so that you don't lose. Let me do that a little slower. File, save as, and that will make it so that you're not saving over your current file. And then just change the name to whatever, like 3.5, although I've already done it, so it's not going to let me do it again. And click save. Hello, puppies. I'll have to continue this another time. Hi, Kimberbellas. Quick tutorial for those of us that are working on the Welcome Autumn bench pillow. We are at the stage of doing the leaf blocks for the border. I'm going to just show you a quick way of how I'm doing mine, and I also want to discuss other options. So this is your Welcome Autumn bench pillow. This is the part that we've done so far. So we're on to the leaf borders. So as I mentioned earlier, you can do your leaf blocks without quilting them. It's a pillow. And generally in a pillow, I will do the quilting of the main fabric and then let the rest around it just be as is, but you can choose to quilt it. I chose to quilt mine. So this is what I chose to do. I did quilting over the whole block. You can see it on the back. There's quilting on the whole block, but I did it in the color of the outside fabric so that it stands out most inside of the leaf, and then I did the decorative stitching over the top. So this is what I chose to do. You could not quilt it. You can quilt underneath the leaf only. You can quilt over the top like I did. You could quilt over the whole thing so that it's even under the decorative stitching. Lots of options. So a couple things before we get started. I know it's hard to hear. I'm sorry. I'm a quiet person. I have the sound set in the settings turned all the way up, and I have the sound on my computer all the way up. I'm not a loud person, so I'm doing the best I can. As far as I'm looking into buying a microphone, but not wanting to put too much money into this and just learning Zoom at this point. And also, just so you know, I have this tiny little computer and it's hooked up to a big monitor. And so when you see me looking up, which is what I will be doing throughout this tutorial, I'm looking at that monitor. Sorry about that. And a couple other things. So Sew It Pro is an embroidery software. Some of you have Embrilliance, and I've heard of some others. I don't know anything about the others, so don't ask me questions about the other ones. I don't know. I'm assuming that a lot of the information transfers over the same way, but you'll have to figure out your own or not use it. So keep in mind that the things that we're going to do to this block, you could do on your embroidery machine without a computer, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Hopefully I'll remember all the different parts to discuss. So we're going to start with fabrics that are 5x5 blocks, and our batting. Don't forget your batting. Whenever we do quilting, we add batting. But we're going to finish the block off at 4x4. So that means that if you choose that autumn quilting design, that super pretty one that I did, if you do that, we need to shrink down that quilting design, because the quilting design is made for a 4x4 block with the seam allowance as 4.5, and we need this to be no larger than 4x4. We need it exactly 4x4. So that means we need our quilting design smaller so that we have our seam allowance. So I'm going to show you how to do that and show you some options, and hopefully remember to discuss doing it on your machine too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now so that you can see what I'm doing, and hopefully this is just real quick and we'll just get you started on thinking about how you want to do your own blocks. All right, so share screen, share. All right, so from here, I'm going to open my Sew It Pro. I have it down here at the bottom. And we'll open that up. All right, so from here, you're going to go to File, Open. And I keep my quilting designs, my Kimberbell quilting, on my desktop. So it is here, Kimberbell quilting, and we're using this autumn one. And you're going to open the 4x4. I have a few already on here because I've already done this a few times with trying to make a tutorial. So here's the 4x4. Go ahead and open that. And let me move this box. All right, so you can see that this design is 4.5 by 4.5. And like I said, we need this block no larger than 4x4. So we need it smaller. We need our quilting design to be smaller. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I see that this top thing covers some of my options, but anyway, we'll figure it out. So from here, we're going to go up to this button. See this little button or tab or whatever you want to call it that has, it looks like a square with arrows on each of the corners. That is our resize button. So you click on that, and then in here, highlight. I've got it on locked aspect ratio, and so I can click either one of these and it's going to stay the same. So generally I start at like 95 and go down or up or whatever I'm trying to do, and just do it in small bits at a time. I've already done this, so I know that it's 88%. That gives us the 4x4 block. So I would highlight that and then go ahead on my keyboard and type 88 and then click OK. And notice that now we're at 3.97 for the whole block. And if you click on just the quilting design, we're at just under 3.5. So that's perfect. All right, so now we have shrunk down our quilting design. And I know the audio, I listened to one of these Zoom meetings that I did, and I know the audio goes in and out, and I don't know why, and I'm sorry, but just know that I'm trying to be loud. So anyway, you've got your quilting design done. Now notice that this is the batting placement, the batting tack down, our main fabric placement, our main fabric tack down, and our quilting design. So if you were to make changes while it's clicked on one of these, you're just going to change that one thing. So make sure to click outside of the box and then go up. We want to save this. If we were to make more changes on this or even just click save, then we're going to save over our 4x4 file, which we're going to want for other projects. So don't do that. Click File, Save As. All right, and then we're going to rename it to anything. I'm going to click Test. I'm going to type Test, and I'm going to save it in with my other autumn quilting designs from Kimberbell. All right, so we've got that all saved. Now what we want to do is we want to bring in that leaf design, right? We've got our quilting, and now we want to bring in the leaf. So we're going to go to File, Merge. All right, see this merge here? Now I keep my files, then you have to find your file. All right, I keep mine in Documents, Embroidery Files, and then I've got mine under Thanksgiving and Fall Designs and Welcome Autumn. All right, when you go to Welcome Autumn, the leaf file is in its own folder. So open up that and then open your leaf block. All right, click open and look, it merges right on top. Okay, perfect. So now look what this did to our design, right? So we have our batting placement, batting tack down, fabric placement, fabric tack down, quilting design, and then we have our fabric placement and fabric tack down again. We don't need two of those. So we're gonna go ahead and delete one of them. Since we already sized these, let's delete the one that's got the leaf. All right, so go ahead and click on that thread and then right click on it and we have the option to delete thread. See that? Easy. All right, so that was our placement of our main fabric. Now we're gonna do the same thing for our tack down of our main fabric because we already have it up here. So again, click on it, right click, click delete thread. All right. So now we have our batting placement, batting tack down, main fabric placement, main fabric tack down, and we've got our quilting, and then we've got our fabric. Well, we don't want the quilting just on our batting, we want it on our main fabric. So we need to move this. So to move a thread, it's very easy, or move a step, I should say. You're going to click on that step and then click the shift button on your keyboard and move it to where you want it. Okay, we'll do it here for now and see how that works. All right, so we have batting placement, batting tack down, main fabric placement, main fabric tack down, and then look, we've got our leaf placement for our applique and our leaf tack down, and then we have our quilting. So that means our quilting is gonna go over the top of our main fabric and over the top of our leaf, which is exactly how I wanted mine. You can do yours however you want. And then the next step is the decorative stitch. So the decorative stitch would be on top of all of it. All right, so that stands out the most. And then the last step is our cut line so that we can cut it to 4x4. You can see it's 4x4. All right, so this is exactly how I wanted my block. Like I said, you could do it with the quilting underneath the leaf and just have the leaf be by itself without quilting over the top. However you want to do it, you just move these steps around to the look that you want for yours. And remember, you can do this on your machine and without merging all the files and so forth. All you would do is bring over your quilting design to your embroidery machine, bring over the leaf design, and then you would have to skip some of the steps and keep in mind which steps are which. And that's why it's easier for me on software, but you could easily do this on your machine if you don't want to use software. So if you did that, obviously you would just skip the extra fabric placement line. And if you didn't merge the two, then you would have to have both designs on your USB stick and start with the quilting and do all of those placements and so on. And then if you wanted your quilting, how I've got it on the top, you would just stop and go back to home, open up the next file, do the parts that you want on that, go back. It would be very easy. You just have to keep in mind what is what. It's totally doable though. All right, so once you have this how you want it, this is exactly how I wanted mine. So I want to save it, right? I don't want to do more changes on it because right now I'm working on my autumn quilting design that is my test stitch. See, it says test up here. It'll always tell you up at the top what file that you're working on. And so I want to not save over that. I want to keep that so that I have my 3.5 inch file for other purposes. So I would go to File, Save As. And now I want to save this, since it's got the leaf on it, I want to save it in the file that has the other leaf. So I'm going to go back to my folder that has my leaf file. So remember, I keep mine in my Thanksgiving and then Welcome Autumn and Patch Leaf. So from here, you would just name it something else. A quick, easy way, if you're careful, is to just click on the original one and then change the name so that you don't have to type all that. But you could easily just name it test or added quilting or whatever you want to name it. All right, so then save that in the folder that you want it to be at. You could save it in your desktop. That would be an easy way. All right, so now we have our quilting and our leaf file merged exactly how we want it. I love this block. This is great, okay? So if you wanted to do more, you could do, because we need 22 of these blocks, so we need quite a few of these. We need 16 of the blocks with the leaf and then 6 blocks with just the quilting, or if you choose not to do the quilting, either way. But 6 plain blocks and 16 with the leaf. So if you wanted, you could, depending on your hoop size, save some stabilizer, save some time, and merge the files. So that's easy to do too. So I'm going to show you a quick way how to do that. So if you have a 6x10 as your maximum hoop size, then you would add another one, you know, one on top of the other. If you had 8x12, you could do 4 of them, but keep in mind, like we discussed in Love Notes, this one, not that one, sorry, the fabric, yep, this one, the fabric placement is going to be larger. Actually, since we shrunk the whole thing down, you would still have to, let's see how you would do it. For an 8x12, I think it's a little bit smaller than 8x12. I don't remember off the top of my head, but if it's truly an 8x12, you'd probably have to shrink it just a little bit more, or just do 3. I guess you could fit 3 or almost 3. Either way, you have to figure out what works for you for your hoop size. My biggest hoop is a 9x14, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So if you were to go up here to hoop size, see the one that looks like a little hoop, go to adjust hoop size, and there's a whole bunch of hoop sizes. So you would just choose the one that works for you, for your largest hoop size. You could do, I chose to do this 9.5 by 9.5 because it made it easier for cutting. The 9x14, it's just a big hoop sitting in your lap trying to cut. So I did the 9x9 and I did it a few times, but you could do as large as the 9x14. So I'm going to show you how to do that one just in case. So go ahead and click on the hoop size that you want to use, click on OK, and then you see that it centers your design in the middle. So by the way, so if you have one of those scroll buttons on your mouse, when you scroll up or down, it makes your screen on Sew What Pro larger or smaller. Sorry, my dogs are in the background shaking and being loud. So anyway, so you would have to click on the whole design. Make sure that you're on the whole design. If you only clicked on one part and you move it, then your whole block is out of alignment, and then you'd have to go to Edit, Undo. All right, so just click outside of the box somewhere and then click on your box and move it. Just click on it and bring it where you want it. All right, so now we have that and we want to merge more of them, right? Remember, we saved that as our own separate file. So we would go to File, Merge, and then bring in that block that we just made. All right, so here's the one that we just made. Is that the one? Oh, and now they're whining. We made so many of these. All right, this test. All right, so you can tell from the size that this is the one. So see how our final cut size is 4x4. That's how we know that it's the right one. Make sure this is also 4x4. All right, so again, you're going to click on the entire box and move it to where you want it to be. All right, now you could just keep merging all of these in, and that's easy to do. I like to do one at a time to merge the steps, just to help keep it a little bit easier in my mind. So notice that these first 9 steps are all this first block, whereas all of the second 9 steps are the second block. You could keep it like this. If you added in 6 files, I think you've got like 54 steps or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but you can merge them. So what I chose to do is I merged the batting placement and tack down, the main fabric placement and tack down, and the leaves. I merged all of those until the quilting. I didn't merge the quilting because I wanted them all to be different colors. So either way, I mean, even if you did merge them all, you would just hit that green button on your machine and tell it to stop and then change your thread. It's all very easy to do. So let's see here. So notice that there's this is why I keep it to just like 2 at a time. I'm going to show you how easy this is to merge these. So see the colors. So you would just take this. Remember how I said you move them? You click on one, click your shift button, and then, oh, did we go over move? Yeah, we did. So go over and just move it up. So it's click on it, shift, move it up to where you want it. And then you would just keep doing that. Shift, move up, shift, move up, shift, move up. All right, and then we've got, this one is our leaf. All right, so on here, remember I said I kept mine separate. You don't have to. That's totally up to you. I wanted mine separate so that I can stop it. But for this one, the cut line, we could merge it up. And we still have this one that goes up here. So it's easy because of the colors. It shows you the definition. My doggy's whining because another dog is barking. All right. Oh, that we kept separate. Okay. The cut line. So here I'm going to show you something here. So if we go to, what was it? Edit, join threads. Okay, so all of these ones, before I do it, I want to show you all these ones that are next to each other. Those can all be merged. So right now we have 18 steps and we don't need quite so many stops. You can keep it that way if you want, but edit, join threads, and then it gives you some options. And if you join all the adjacent threads of the same color, then it's going to just merge those together. So you click OK, and now we only have 11 steps. And what I would do is this is that final cut line. I would make sure to move that to the end. You want that at the very end. So again, that was shift, move. Click on it, shift, move. All right. So now you have those merged. You would just keep doing that, or you can do them all at once extremely easily also. Merge, bring in that leaf block, or sorry, the quilted leaf block, test this one. Right, and move it to where you want. Move, add in more of these, file, merge. Bring it over here, and obviously I would neaten it up a bit if I were, but this is just for your merge, sorry, focus. All right, bring it in, move it over. Right, and you can see it's so easy to merge in files. You can straighten them all up in the whole bit. And then you would just start moving all of these to however you wanted it. Like I said, I would keep the cut file as the last item, but just move them all around. And the way to do that is that simple little click on it, shift, and move it up. And then you do that edit, join threads. So you can see it's a really simple process to make them all into one hooping or do them all separately. Either way, whatever works for you. Hopefully this gives you some information, and once you've got all your leaf blocks done, I haven't sewn mine together yet, but once you have them all done, share a photo in the comments so that we can know when to move on. And the next step is going to be our autumn, that little burlap thing. So anyway, hopefully this helps. I'm sorry about the sound. I'm looking at solutions, but hopefully this is working for you. Have a good day, everyone.
See ya.
Hey Kimberbellas, how is your welcome autumn bench pillow coming along? We are really close to the end. Today we're going to work on the banner, the little part that says autumn. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this project, you can use different products for that banner. If you have burlap, you can use burlap. That's what it's called for in the directions. I've chosen not to use burlap. I just don't like how messy it is, but I love the rustic look of it. There's other things. I don't know where I got this, and I wish I did so I could get more. But this, it looks like burlap, but it's much more tightly wound weave. I don't know if that's what you call it. But anyway, that's what I'm going to use. There's also fabrics, regular fabric that looks like it's got a burlap look to it. There's lots of so I mean, you could use absolutely whatever works for you. So let's get started. Kimberbellas, Cristin Som here. The last step for our Welcome Autumn bench pillow is to add the backing. And I'm sure most of you know how to do that. I'm going to give a quick little tutorial just in case. I did mine with an envelope backing like in the instructions, but a lot of people like to do it with a zipper. Great, you know, whatever works for you. One thing I did differently is I added a label. Hard to see it from here, but I added a label to the back of my pillow, and I used a cute little Kimberbell acorn applique. So anyway, that's totally optional, of course. I like to think of it as tons of years from now, when I'm long gone, my great-grandchildren will go, oh, my grandma made this. So anyway, just something to, an extra added thing if you want to do that. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to do a quick little tutorial here. I'm shaking my leg and moving the camera. Sorry. Anyway, I have a quick dinner with family, and then I will get this tutorial out. So good job, everyone that did your Welcome Autumn bench pillow. I'm proud of you. It's before the end of September, and we got it done, even with love notes. Good job, all.